Hi, this is Tony, and we're back on the bench. And this morning, we're going to be doing another walkthrough service here on a spinning reel. So this is an Abu Garcia Cardinal Model 564 spinning reel. And, as you can see, it's in good shape. This reel, when it came to me, it was in relatively good shape, but it had some internal issues that definitely had to be addressed. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But we're going to go through all the take apart steps, all the cleaning. I'm going to show you all the things that I like to do. So, if you have this reel, or if you're thinking of getting this same reel, if you find it on eBay or something like that, then you'll know a little bit about how to take it apart and what's involved in that. So we're just going to do some of the basic stuff here: handle, spool. So we've got 3 screws here on the side plate that need to come out. You can do that with a Phillips head, number 2, I believe. But this is a nice reel. It's a basic design, as I would put it, for Abu gear. This is a non-ball bearing reel, so it's strictly bushings, and that's it. But given its age, it's in pretty good shape. We'll take apart the drag stack, and I'll show you what's involved in that. That's probably the trickiest part on this particular model, is dealing with the drag stack. So plate comes off, clean up the inside real good, and then you'll apply some fresh blue grease or whatever kind of reel grease you're using. I like to use Penn Precision blue grease, but you want to clean up that area real nice and good. Just due to all the cleaning that had to be done with this reel is why I decided to do a walkthrough video. I just wanted to get it all cleaned up because it takes a pretty ample amount of time to do all the cleaning on video. So make note that there is a washer here that sits on top. You can actually nest that with this plate right here. You got your cam, take that out, and then at this point you've got a couple of bits and pieces here that need to come out. Main gear should come out at this point. You want to clean up that main gear, spray some penetrating fluid on that, take a toothbrush or a brass wire brush and clean off all the teeth real good. Okay. Again, I've already serviced this reel, so you're going to see, fresh grease, fresh oil, all that kind of stuff on here already. Now, this is one part that is a little tricky. So you've got your block right here, and the cam, the main drive line won't come out of here until you first take out that small pin. It's got to come out. And then you can roll this block over. Actually, so there's a couple of other pieces here that are starting to come apart. You've got this little clicker tongue here that comes out eventually. But this click arm right here needs to come out before you roll the block over. So again, there's kind of a sequence that you have to follow in order to get this right. Otherwise, you'll struggle, and you'll probably end up breaking something in the process. So just go slow, spread your pieces and parts out, use parts trays. Okay. But now at this point, you should be able to roll this block over, and it's only plastic. All right, and what I find is helpful is if you roll it all the way to the left, and then you can get a small screwdriver in there like this, and you should, in theory, be able to pry it up, but be gentle because you don't want to break it. Okay, but it should snap off like that. Okay, and you just want to make note of the orientation of this when you go to put it back. Okay, and so this curved edge here faces up basically, and you just want to make sure you get that right. So at this point, your main drive line should come out. You want to clean that off with some 4-0 steel wool and clean it up real good. Okay, and then we've got a 12 mil nut on top here. Reverse thread, pretty typical on a lot of these. Take that nut off. Okay. Now also note that there is spacer right here that you don't want to lose, and then underneath it's either going to be attached to the bottom of the rotor or it's going to be right here, but there's this spacer washer here, and you don't want to lose that, okay? You have to have those spacer washers in place. Now at this point, your pinion gear should be loose, and also note that there is another spacer washer underneath, and you want to keep that with your pinion gear, okay? I do recommend getting the schematic if you're trying to work on this reel and you're not familiar with it. Okay, but as you can see, that's the bulk of the inside of the reel minus the drag stack. Now the problem, one of the problems that this reel had is it was heavily over greased, and I did a quick short video on this too, and I'll post that on the channel. But a lot of that grease seeped down into this drag stack here, and that got to be a real problem. So then, you know, your drag starts slipping. That's a common problem with rear drag spinning reels, and it's I believe one of the reasons why they don't make them anymore. Another reason being is that these drag washers are really small, whereas top drag systems, the washers are traditionally quite a bit larger. So it's just one little thing to note, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad reel or anything like that. It's just a different design. So at this point, you want to clean off all this. I had to take some degreaser and some purple power degreaser here to this, and scrub that up real good with a toothbrush, clean it up, use some Q-tips and get all that old grease out of there. Okay, now at this point, you're ready to deal with the drag stack. So what I like to do here is I'm just going to lay down a paper towel here. Nice clean paper towel. So in order to get this stack out, there's no screw underneath this knob here. Okay, so what you need to do is you kind of need to tighten up just a little bit on the drag, and there's a washer here, a set washer that's in place, and it's a little tricky to get at, but you can do it with a pair of needle nose with a little bit of work. But you have to grab this and you have to pull it out. It's like a little snap ring basically, okay? And that's got to come out in order to get this drag assembly apart. Okay, now at this point you can loosen the knob up and take this out. It's actually a nice design compared to some of the others that I've seen. You want to clean off all these threads the best that you can, right, and get any old sand or grit or dirt, anything of that sort out of there. You don't want any of those things impeding any of this part of the reel here. Okay, so now we're down to our drag stack. Now this is kind of the tricky part. It's not that easy, but what I like to do is I like to just kind of go one by one and take a small screwdriver and take each one of these components out one by one. Okay, so this is it's kind of like a spring washer, basically. It's a tension washer, okay? Now make note of the orientation of all these. This is where the schematic comes in handy, so that you know the orientation of these washers when you go to put them back. But yeah, a typical problem with rear drag systems is the oil and the grease does flow down, and that's just something that happens. So you kind of want to do regular maintenance as much as you can, after each season. You want to clean up all that excess grease and all the stuff that's flowing downward into that drag system, so that it doesn't foul up on you basically. So the metal washer there. There's another fiber washer here. Okay. And then there's just a couple more here, and at this point you should be able to get the whole rest of the assembly out without too much hassle, but just make note that there are loose pieces and parts here floating around. There's actually a washer here on top. Still can't get it out. So yeah, you got to get all these out pretty much one by one. So it's not the easiest design to work on, but you know, it's a relatively efficient drag system when it's clean and it's operational. It's not too bad. So there we go. Okay, so that is your drag stack right there. And that's the whole bulk of the reel. So what you do here at this point is we're going to clean up these washers. You want to clean these teeth off real good. Clean off all old grease and old contaminants the best that you can. Okay, and then once that's done, then you're pretty much ready for reassembly. You just want to make sure that you have these washers in the proper sequence when you put them back. Okay, I'm just kind of lightly wiping these off once again, just so that they're ready to go back in. Okay, so now we're ready to go back in the reverse order here and put all this back in. So you got this fiber washer, kind of a hardened fiber washer that rests on top. Okay, and what I do is I just start with putting this back into place like this, and then I'll hold the reel basically in this position, and then I'll just put these washers in one by one. And you know, you need to use the help of a screwdriver, I find, a lot of the time, just to get these started. But once you get those in and get them started, you can just put them in one by one like so. You definitely want to take your time when you're doing this. You don't want to rush it, and you don't want to get it mixed up. Okay. And finally our tension washer goes on top here. And then we're ready to put our cap back on here. I'm just going to take a Q-tip one more time to the inside of this and make sure everything's all cleaned off here real good. Okay. Now, note that when you go to do this, you need to have this tightened basically just right so that you can get that snap ring back into place. Okay, and you'll know when it's there when you have enough clearance, basically. So that should be it right about there. And then you snap that ring back into place, and your drag stack is ready to go. Okay, so now we're ready essentially for reassembly. There's no ball bearings once again, so your pinion gear, clean off the teeth real good. Take a Q-tip to the inside of that shaft. Don't forget your washer on top. Take that blue grease and get those gears, you know, with a nice light film of blue grease. Okay, and then we'll put this back into position up top like so. Okay, and then we have, once again, there's a washer that resides here on top for your rotor. Okay, now when it comes to the rotor, before we put it back on, you want to apply just a little bit of real oil to these seams here, or some penetrating fluid is fine. You want to exercise this bail system here real well. Okay, you also want to hit a little bit of real oil under here. Okay, and then don't forget your line roller. In this case, what I did is I just took a little bit of multi-purpose lube to that. It was already spinning quite freely, so there wasn't any real problems there, but just to kind of help it along, you know, it's in pretty good shape. But you want to make sure that line roller's in good shape. Okay, and then that's pretty much it for the rotor. We'll attach this back on once again. Got your rotor nut, reverse thread, so like I said, it's a fairly basic design, That spins real nice and freely. Don't forget to clean up your axle shaft, your main drive shaft, with some 4-0 steel wool. Put a light film of blue grease on this here. You don't want to overdo it. Okay. That's part of the problem that this reel had, is it just had so much gummed up grease, and it got to the point where it was just kind of hardening. And you should be able to insert this all the way down into your drag stack like that, and make sure that you do that, because that's going to align everything properly. Okay, so make sure that you've got that alignment just right. Okay. Okay, so now at this point, you should be ready to put your block back into position. Now this was pretty tricky to do. You got to take your time to do it, and you got to have it lined up just right with this, and you just kind of have to work it in and just push down basically like that. Okay. And then this click tongue is ready to go back in. I like to do a little bead of oil on that screw and put this back in. This is a little tricky to do. You got to get the clearance just right. Just get it in there and okay, so should look like that. And now you're ready for essentially just a couple of other pieces. Now don't forget this plastic clicker tongue here that needs to go back into position before you put any more of this back. Okay, and there's a little hole right here that this has to slide down into here. Okay, so it should look like that. Okay, now just a couple more pieces and parts. Once again, clean up your drive shaft real good. Okay, some blue grease to those teeth and the shaft itself. Make sure there's no other dirt or any obstruction there. Okay, we'll slide that back into position like so. One little thing that we forgot though, however, is the block needs to be rolled back over. And as you can see, I already put the tongue back into position a little too early. So this is another reason why it's good to either take pictures along the way or take a video. There's that little pin right there. So you got to roll this back over, get your pin in place, and then the edge of that pin is going to catch the bottom of the cam. Now you can put this back into position. One of the good things about some reel repairs is that it's pretty obvious when it's not right, and you know you'll know pretty quickly at a certain point. Okay, yeah, this can't go back in without something else going back into position first, and so that's just something that you want to make note of. A little tricky to get this screw lined up here, but we'll get it. There we go. Okay. All right, so now we're ready for our main gear to go back into position like so. We've got our fork. It goes into that position there, and there's a little plastic knob that sticks out of the main gear, and it has to go right there, okay, in that notch. Okay, it has to be lined up with that. Okay. Okay, so now you're ready to put your cam back into position. Again, clean off all these surfaces real good. Apply your blue grease to that surface. Your cam's going to go back into position, and we're going to hit this pin down here, cam pin that we just placed back into position like so. And then we have that washer that resides on top of that. Just don't want to forget that. Okay. Nice clean surface here. And then you can feel free to just apply a little bit of blue grease here, just a little bit here on top of the cam. That's really all you need to do. You don't need to get carried away with it. Okay. So at this point, you're ready to get your screws back in there. But, you know, this reel is, I mean, it's a well-made reel for the most part, I'd say. It's made from good components. This is the Korean generation of Abu Garcia. They've gone through quite a few different phases in that company in terms of where the pieces and parts come from and where the reels are made. Okay, a little bit of blue grease to your handle shaft, a little bit of oil at these points here, real oil. Slide it back in, a little bit of real oil on those threads. Put your spool cap back on. And we're just going to dry this off a little bit here, get some of this residual grease off of here. So, try everything out here. Anti-reverse is working good. Bail's really nice. Nice strong bail. Got loose drag at the moment, and we'll tighten it up a little bit. And the drag's working really, really well. So, there you have it. That is the Abu Garcia Cardinal Model 564, all serviced up and ready to go. So, thanks again for watching. This is Tony with Back on the Bench. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more, please subscribe and hit that notification button. We'll see you next time.